For years, Zuri's parents turned her pain into their business. In Lagos, everyone saw them as a kind, generous couple caring for their poor, broken daughter. At charity events, they spoke softly about her mental struggles, pretending they had sacrificed everything for her. People cried, hugged them, and donated money to help Zuri recover. But none of it went to Zuri. Every naira was pocketed by her parents, who smiled through their lies and used her story to build their wealth. Behind closed doors, Zuri wasn't the fragile girl they showed the world. She was sharp, curious, and full of questions. But her parents hated questions. They told her to stay quiet, to act weak, to be the sad girl everyone pitied. They said it was, for her own good, but it was really for theirs. Whenever she tried to speak, they reminded her that she owed them everything, that without them, she was nothing. Slowly, they built a cage around her made of fear and guilt. At dinners, her mother would hold her hand and whisper, "Smile, baby. Just one more picture." Cameras flashed, people applauded, and Zuri stood there, pretending to be broken while her parents soaked in praise and money. Every time she looked at them, she wondered how love could feel so much like a performance. Deep down, she dreamed of the day the truth would spill out, when she could finally say what she had kept inside for years. At home, everything was different. The moment the front door closed, the kind, smiling parents everyone adored disappeared. Zuri's father's voice turned sharp, his words cutting through the air like knives. Her mother's sweet tone became cold and cruel. The house that looked perfect from the outside felt like a prison inside. They didn't speak to Zuri with love. They spoke with control. Every "we love you" came with a rule. Every "we're doing this for you" came with a threat. If Zuri ever asked about the charity money, about where all the donations went, her father's face would twist with anger. He would slam his hand on the table and shout, "How dare you question us after everything we've done for you?" Her mother would sigh dramatically, pretending to cry, calling Zuri ungrateful and selfish. Then they'd tell her again that she was lucky to even have them, that no one else would ever love someone as damaged as her. Those words burned into her mind, replaying until she almost believed them. They controlled every part of her life. They took her phone, stopped her from going out, and even told her friends that she was too sick to talk. They locked her inside her own world and made her feel guilty for wanting freedom. Every morning her mother would smile and say, "You owe us your life, remember?" And Zuri would nod, even though inside she wanted to scream. But Zuri wasn't as helpless as they thought. Late at night, when the house was quiet, she'd sit by her window with a small notebook hidden under her bed. That was her secret world, the only place where she could speak the truth. She wrote down everything, every lie they told, every fake tear her mother cried, every donation her father collected. She listed names, dates, amounts. Sometimes, she even drew tiny sketches of how her parents acted when people were watching versus when they were alone. Her journal became her silent weapon. On some pages, she poured out her anger and sadness. On others, she wrote small reminders to herself, "You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are not what they say you are." Those words gave her strength. Each sentence felt like a breath of freedom. Some nights she would hear her parents laughing downstairs, drinking wine and counting money. Her father would joke about Zuri's condition, and her mother would giggle like it was funny. Zuri would close her eyes, gripping her pen so tightly her hand hurt. She knew then that one day, the truth would have to come out. She didn't know when or how, but she was ready. For now, she stayed silent, pretending to be the weak girl they wanted the world to see. But behind that silence, Zuri was watching, remembering, and writing everything that would one day set her free. The night of the Hope Gala was supposed to be about charity and kindness, but for Zuri, it felt like a nightmare she had lived too many times. The ballroom shimmered with golden lights, filled with laughter, music, and the clinking of wine glasses. People dressed in their finest clothes smiled and whispered as her parents walked in hand, looking like the perfect couple. And right beside them, Zuri followed quietly, dressed in soft pastels, her face calm, her heart breaking. Her mother led her to the stage like a prop, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "This is our daughter, Zuri," she began, her voice trembling with fake emotion. "She has been through so much, but we keep fighting for her." The crowd sighed with sympathy. Cameras flashed. Some people even wiped away tears. Zuri stood there frozen, every word cutting deeper. She could feel hundreds of eyes staring at her, not as a person, but as a sad story they could feel good about supporting. When the speeches ended, her father raised his glass to thank the donors. He smiled, saying their foundation had saved countless lives, including Zuri's. More applause followed. Donations rolled in, envelopes stuffed with cash, promises of checks, praise for their sacrifice. Zuri's stomach turned. She looked down at her hands, her nails digging into her palms so hard they almost drew blood. The pain helped her stay steady, helped her stop from crying in front of them all. As the night went on, Zuri slipped away to a quiet corner. From there, she could hear her father laughing loudly with a group of businessmen. His voice carried easily across the room. "The new property in Lekki will be ready next month," he said proudly. "Paid in full, with our dear Zuri's treatment funds." The men laughed, and her father joined them. For a moment, Zuri couldn't breathe. The noise of the party faded, replaced by the pounding of her heart. Every memory of their lives flashed before her eyes, the fake tears, the staged photos, the cruel words at home. All those years they called her broken, when they were the ones who were rotten inside. Something inside her cracked that night. It wasn't sadness anymore, it was clarity. Zuri realized that if she didn't save herself, no one ever would. She couldn't keep living as their story, their puppet, their prophet. She wanted her voice back, her name, her life. As the music swelled and her parents continued to smile for the cameras, Zuri stood up from her chair and looked at them from across the room. She saw them clearly for the first time, not as parents, but as strangers who used her pain to build their power. That night, she made a silent promise. She would not be their lie anymore. They would never use her again. The house was silent, the kind of deep silence that comes only in the middle of the night. The clock on Zuri's wall glowed softly, 3 a.m. She sat on her bed, heart racing, staring at the small backpack beside her. Inside it were the only things she truly owned, a few clothes, her hidden journal, and a USB drive holding copies of everything she had recorded, every lie, every fake bill, every secret her parents never wanted the world to see. She had planned this moment for weeks, pretending everything was normal, waiting for the right time. And now, that time had come. Her parents were asleep down the hall, their door slightly open. She could hear her father's heavy snore, her mother's soft breathing. They looked so peaceful when they slept, like they had no guilt, no shame. For years, they had taken her voice, her freedom, her name, and now she was about to take back everything they stole. She looked around her room one last time. The same room they decorated with pity, filled with soft colors and medical charts to make her look fragile. But it had also been her hiding place, her prison, and her classroom. It was where she had learned how to survive their lies. Zuri picked up her bag and took a deep breath. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. Step by step, she walked to the door. The floor creaked once, and she froze, heart hammering in her chest. After a long second, she heard her father turn in his sleep but didn't wake up. She exhaled slowly, tiptoed through the hallway, and reached the front door. She slipped on her shoes and opened it as quietly as she could. The cold night air hit her face like freedom. Outside, Lagos was sleeping. The streets were empty except for the distant hum of the city and the soft rustle of trees. The moonlight touched her skin as if to guide her forward. For a moment, she felt fear crawl up her spine. What if they found her? What if she had nowhere to go? But then she remembered the years of silence, the lies, the humiliation. The fear faded, replaced by something stronger, peace. She started walking, her backpack pressing against her shoulders, the weight of her past growing lighter with every step. She didn't look back, not even once. She knew that if she did, she might lose her courage. Somewhere out there, a new life was waiting, one that belonged only to her. By dawn, the sun rose slowly over the city. Her parents were still asleep, dreaming their usual dream of control and comfort. But when her mother finally opened Zuri's door, the room was empty. The bed was neatly made, the closet half open, the air still. Zuri was gone. And with her disappearance, the broken child they built their empire on vanished too, leaving behind only silence and the beginning of their unraveling. A few days after Zuri disappeared, the internet exploded. At first, it was small, one anonymous post on social media, a few screenshots, a short video clip. But within hours, it spread like fire. People started sharing documents that exposed her parents' charity as a massive fraud. There were receipts, bank statements, and photos of expensive cars and jewelry bought with money that was supposed to help their sick daughter. Each post was like a bomb, shattering the perfect image they had built for years. The same community that once admired them was now angry and confused. How could they do this? People asked online. Was Zuri ever really sick? Journalists picked up the story. News channels ran headlines calling it the biggest charity scam in Lagos. The videos from their past galas resurfaced, her mother crying fake tears on stage, her father smiling proudly while people donated millions. Now, everyone watched those clips differently. The sympathy was gone, in its place was pure outrage. Within days, reporters surrounded their mansion, shouting questions as they pulled up in their fancy cars. Her father kept insisting everything was a misunderstanding. "We've helped so many families," he said to one camera, forcing a smile. Her mother tried to cry again, claiming they were victims of a smear campaign. But the world wasn't buying it this time. The evidence was too strong, too detailed. People began digging into their records, finding more lies, properties hidden under fake names, false medical documents, staged photos of Zuri in hospitals she had never visited. Every morning brought new headlines, new proof, new humiliation. Invitations to charity events stopped. Their so-called friends vanished overnight. Banks froze their accounts. The same people who once praised them now called them monsters. Behind the locked gates of their mansion, panic grew. Her father shouted on phone calls, trying to silence journalists and track down whoever leaked the files. Her mother barely slept, pacing the house with swollen eyes, whispering, "It can't be her. Zuri wouldn't do this." But deep down, they both knew the truth. The leaks were too personal, too precise. Only someone who had seen everything from the inside could have exposed them. And the thought terrified them. They had always believed Zuri was too weak to fight back. Too scared. Too broken. But now the world was turning against them, and their broken child was nowhere to be found. For the first time, they couldn't control the story. The masks they wore for so long were falling apart in front of millions of eyes. Their empire of lies was crumbling, piece by piece. Still, they clung to their denial, convinced they could spin another story, save their image, and rebuild. But what they didn't know was that the real storm hadn't even hit yet. Zuri was still out there, and she wasn't finished. 3 months passed in silence. The internet had calmed, but the story of Zuri and her parents still floated in whispers. People wondered where she was, if she was safe, and if she would ever speak. Then one bright morning, the nation woke up to see her name trending again, but this time, not in pity or confusion. Zuri had returned. When the television lights came on, she sat in front of the cameras, calm and steady. Her hair was neatly tied back, her voice soft but strong. The world had last seen her as a quiet, fragile girl standing beside her parents. Now, she looked like someone who had found herself. The host greeted her gently, unsure what to expect. But Zuri didn't come to cry. She came with proof. She placed her old, worn-out journal on the table. "This," she said, "is where the truth begins." Page by page, she revealed her notes, every date, every lie, every fake donation her parents took in her name. Then came the recordings, her mother coaching her on what to say in front of guests, her father boasting about how much money people gave them after each event. Each clip played through the studio speakers, and the room grew heavy with silence. Next, she pulled out a USB drive. On screen appeared documents, bank transfers, and messages that showed how her parents had turned her supposed illness into their business. The audience watched, stunned. These were not rumors anymore. This was hard proof, every secret they tried to bury laid bare before millions. Zuri spoke clearly, without shaking. "For years, they said I was broken," she said, looking straight into the camera. "They told everyone I needed saving. But the truth is, they broke me for profit." Her words didn't come with anger, they came with calm power, the kind that comes from finally being free. Every sentence felt like justice. Every breath felt like a victory. Across the country, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Shops turned up their TVs, students watched on their phones, and social media lit up with messages of support. "We believe you, Zuri. You are brave. You are not broken." Her parents, watching from home, could only stare as the truth they had buried rose to the surface. Zuri ended her interview with a line that would echo across the nation: "You called me broken. You used me to build your empire. But now, watch the truth fix everything." Then she stood up, thanked the host, and walked away, not as the weak girl the world once pitied, but as the woman who took back her story. That night, news stations replayed her words again and again. The world finally saw who Zuri truly was, a survivor, not a victim. The mask her parents built had shattered forever, and in its place stood the real Zuri, calm, fearless, and finally free. The news spread faster than anyone expected. The morning after Zuri's interview, headlines flooded every screen: charity scandal exposed, the Adeyemis arrested for fraud. Police cars surrounded the mansion that once hosted glamorous parties and charity dinners. Cameras flashed as officers led her parents out in handcuffs. Her mother tried to hide her face behind sunglasses, while her father shouted at the journalists, claiming it was all a lie. But no one believed them anymore. The world had seen the truth with their own eyes. Their neighbors, who once admired their wealth and kindness, now stood outside whispering in disbelief. Reporters filmed as luxury cars were towed away and boxes of documents were carried out of the house. The same home that had been their pride became a symbol of everything fake and corrupt. The government froze their bank accounts, charity boards cut all ties, and sponsors withdrew their support. Within days, the life they had built on Zuri's suffering collapsed like a house of cards. Social media exploded again, but this time, it wasn't filled with pity for Zuri. It was filled with praise. People called her brave, strong, and fearless. The girl they called broken just exposed one of the biggest scams in the country, one tweet read. She didn't just save herself, she saved others from being used the same way. Hashtags like #JusticeForZuri and #Unbroken started trending. Her story inspired thousands who had been silenced by their families or trapped in toxic homes. TV hosts who once described Zuri as a fragile girl battling illness, now called her the woman who turned pain into power. Newspapers printed her photos beside headlines celebrating her courage. She became a symbol of truth, a reminder that even the quietest voices could shake the strongest lies. Meanwhile, in their jail cells, her parents sat in silence. The reality of what they had done finally hit them. The friends who once laughed with them at fancy dinners had vanished. The charity partners they once controlled refused to answer their calls. The same people who used to beg for their attention now wanted nothing to do with them. Everything they owned, every car, every piece of jewelry, every bit of wealth, was being taken away to repay what they had stolen. Zuri watched it all from a distance, not with joy, but with peace. She didn't celebrate their fall. She didn't need to. The truth had done what it was meant to do. For the first time in years, she felt free. The lie that once defined her was gone. That night, as she sat by her window watching the city lights, she smiled quietly. The girl who once stood on stage pretending to be broken had brought down the empire built on her pain. And in that quiet moment, Zuri knew, their downfall wasn't her revenge. It was her closure. Months passed, and Zuri's name became a symbol of strength and truth. She had spent those months healing, learning to live on her own terms, and turning her pain into purpose. The same girl who once escaped at 3 a.m. with nothing but a backpack now stood at the center of a brightly lit stage, dressed in white, calm and confident. Cameras flashed, music played softly, and people from all over the country gathered to witness the launch of her new dream, the Unbroken Project. Zuri stepped up to the microphone and smiled at the crowd. Her voice was gentle but powerful. "They paraded me as broken," she said. But the only thing broken was their conscience. The audience erupted in applause. Some stood with tears in their eyes, others raised their phones to capture the moment. This time, no one was looking at her with pity. They were looking at her with pride. The Unbroken Project was more than a charity, it was a movement. It was built to help children and teenagers who had been exploited, silenced, or used by their own families, just like she once was. Zuri promised that no child under her foundation would ever feel worthless or voiceless again. She had turned her suffering into a light that would guide others out of the same darkness. As the event ended, people crowded around her, thanking her for her courage. She looked out over the sea of faces, feeling something she hadn't felt in years, peace. The girl who once ran into the night to escape her pain now stood proudly in the light she had created. Zuri was no longer the broken child. She was the unbroken woman who turned her scars into strength and her silence into change.